When building a computer or using a pre-built system, storage is a must-have component that stores all your files from your computer, even after it turns off. There are several options when it comes to storage, and they all have their own unique advantages and disadvantages. Starting off with the slowest and cheapest option, hard disk drives offer the largest capacities. Hard disk drives read data by moving reading heads on top of fast-spinning magnetic disks. The downsides of these hard drives is that they reduce the read and write speeds due to their mechanical movement of the fast-spinning disks. Hard drives, through SATA and USB 3.0 ports, prove to have about the same speed. They perform poorly in random read and write speeds, sometimes reaching even lower than 1 megabyte per second. While it may seem that the 5400 RPM hard drive was better than the 7200 RPM hard drive, real-world results were quite different. We'll see that in a bit. Up next on our list, solid-state drives. These ones offer a great boost compared to hard drives, however they are quite more costly. Ran by reading and writing to billions of small transistors, SSDs gain a major boost performance over hard drives due to their lack of mechanical parts. SSDs also offer more interfaces to connect from, many of which have more data lines, making the speeds much faster than other forms. Usually you will find them as 2.5-inch drives with a SATA 3 port, but they also exist in several different lengths of M.2 drives and in a vastly faster but expensive PCI card. Tests gave overall the best results. With over 4 times what hard drives could do, SSDs showed off their top-tier performance. With a bit less than half of the original speeds in read and write and majorly reduced random read and write speeds, the SSD had really been brought down by the USB 3.0 port that it was put into. Standing in the middle with its okay performance, there is the hybrid solid-state hard drive. The SSHD uses a hard drive to store all the data, but then there is an internal SSD to cache copies of important files to read them back faster than the hard drive could. In my test, the SSHD performed quite well for reads, but as you can see the writes were actually brought down, unlike the normal hard drives. This is likely caused due to reading from the cache fast, but writing to the hard drive slow. Later, you will see how this mechanism actually helps the drive get some decent performance in real-world use. There are also some forms of external data storage out there that go through USB. They offer the convenience of quickly going from one computer to another, but are limited in their speed and capacity. You'll usually find USB devices to be flash drives and SD cards, but internal-based storage devices can also connect externally with adapters through the USB port. Overall, the flash drives and the microSD performed very poorly, despite having decent sequential read speeds and sequential write speeds of about half. Every other stress test on average was slow. The fastest drive was the USB 3.1 Type-C. It performed with up to 150 megabytes per second. The slowest was the microSD, and it barely even got to 30 megabytes. Real-world results were done by capturing reboots of a fresh Windows 10 operating system 5 times from restart to desktop, making sure any caching and internal optimization is done. My M.2 results are bad. I cannot afford another M.2 drive, so I had to use my own, which already has my current operating system installed. Theoretically, an M.2 SSD should perform the same as, or faster than, an SSD through the SATA port. Topping the boards in first place, averaging about 17 seconds per reboot, the SSD holds to its name strong. It is a great solid boot drive choice and is honestly the only storage medium I can suggest for booting from, M.2 or SATA form. Next up, the SSHD performed well. It showed off how well an SSD and hard drive hybrid work well, as loads of the OS files get cached onto the SSD, booting in as low as 21 seconds. Despite these great speeds, an SSHD is not a good boot choice. With more softwares installed and more files on your system, they will begin to compete with the operating system for the small available cache space. Eventually, you will have very slow boot times, as they are not cached anymore. In second to last place, we have the 7200 RPM hard drive. It performs noticeably slower than the previous drives, faster than the 5400 RPM, but still pretty slow boot times of around 73 seconds average. It will only get slower as it gets more used. Not a good boot drive, but great for general storage. At 10 seconds slower than the 7200 RPM hard drive, the 5400 RPM hard drive averages around 83 seconds for boot times. Don't even bother touching these unless you want extra cheap and slow storage. What is your best option? If you're using a hard drive already to boot from, you should get an SSD. It should provide you a great boost in performance, but you should make sure to get an M.2 or a SATA depending on what your device supports. What size? That also depends. If you're simply just browsing the internet, you can get away with just 128 gigabytes. If you download lots of software, you will likely need an SSD of 256 gigabytes or more. If you need more space than your solid state can hold, then you should check your device to see if it has room for a 2.5 or 3.5 inch drive. You should fill that slot with a hard drive if you can. Hard drives might be a bit slower, but they are cheaper and you can still access your files at a pretty decent speed. There are still other forms of storage out there too. Some are complex and some are just really expensive. For example, we can put drives into a RAID, get Intel Optane drives, or get the incredibly slow and expensive tape drives. These are unconventional methods and devices that will drive holes into your wallets. That wraps up this episode. I hope it helps you decide what storage device you want, or you learn a bit more on how storage devices perform. You can check back on my YouTube channel for more videos and subscribe to be informed when new videos are released.